3 stars. You must be a fucking moron if you're not giving my book 5 stars, okay? Welcome to Not Safe for Words. I'm your host, Crystal L. Kirkham, multi-genre author, editor, and cover designer. I'm here to give you insight into the world of publishing and to help you avoid the mistakes that others have made. So stick around, you're in for one hell of a ride where I don't curb the curses. Last episode, we talked all about dishing out those reviews. This episode, it's about handling what you're served with professionalism. It's a word I've thrown around here or there, and hopefully by now you know what the hell I mean by that. But in case you're a newcomer, professionalism. Acting like a fucking professional and not a toddler who had their feelings hurt because you couldn't have the piece of candy before dinner. That is what this is all about. When you're in the public realm, you have to act like a member of the public realm. You can't be throwing fits, you can't be calling names, and you sure as hell cannot be calling your friends out to attack people who give your book a review you don't like or agree with. So, I've been the recipient of some less than stellar reviews. It's going to happen to everyone. In my case, looking back, yes, the book could have been better. It was still a good book, but it could have been better. And that means I would have gotten my share of reviews that weren't exactly ideal. And that's okay. Because even if I wrote the best fucking book in the world, there's going to be somebody who hates it. Seriously, think of your most favorite book ever, or the most popular book that you've ever known, and go look at their reviews. Guaranteed it's not all 5 stars, because that's just not how it works. I mean, we've talked about how arbitrary star ratings are. It was mentioned in the last episode. So I want you to put aside focusing on those stars. And I know it's hard because I look at the goddamn star ratings too. And every time I'm just like, why? Why can't it just be a little bit higher? I don't want a 4.1. I want a 4.2 star rating. Like that just feels better to me. But it's not important because they are arbitrary. And I don't know about you, but as a reader, when I'm going to look at reviews, I read a couple of 5-star reviews, a couple of the 1-star reviews if they have any. I tend to read a few of the middle as well because I want to get a rounded picture of whether or not this is a book I'm going to like. If this is a book I even want to invest a modicum of my time in, because I don't have a lot of time to waste. And that's really what reviews are all about. The star rating isn't as important as what people are saying. But when we're talking about receiving reviews, obviously there are going to be people who say things that don't work for you, that you don't agree with. And I'm going to be so honest. There are some people who, when you read their reviews, and it doesn't even have to be on your own book, you can probably find them on a bunch of other books out there, and you're going to sit there and wondering, what the fuck did they read? Because it sure as hell wasn't this book. And maybe it wasn't, or maybe they're on some really good drugs that they're not sharing with the rest of us. But either way, that review is now something the author of that book has to deal with, acknowledge, or ignore. And in the grand scheme of things, when in doubt, ignore the fuck out of it. When it comes to reviews and feedback, don't respond. It's like the number one rule. It is a cardinal rule of being an author. Don't respond to reviews. Now, there are exceptions. I've responded to reviews. I've said, hey, thank you for taking the time to read my book. Hey, Yeah, that's great feedback. They're little things. They're not, you're a fucking moron and you should never be allowed to review another book. They're not, you've made me question my entire career choice and I think I'm just going to delete this book and do something stupid. It's not that. Because reviewers are only doing what they do, reviewing your book. You put it out there. People are not going to like it. I've said that already, probably a few times. It's well past my bedtime when I'm recording this time, guys. So, you get what you get. But that is the nature of this business. And I've seen a lot of authors who have not only really made a name for themselves in a terrible way when it comes to reviews. I have seen authors that have a book that I thought, God, I would really love to fucking read that book. That story sounds amazing. But how they act to reviewers who don't give them 5-star reviews is so atrocious that I would never pick up their book. Ever. It's as simple as that. So not only does your behavior throw off other reviewers, it can actually deter readers from wanting to read your book. I really wish the little snippet I gave at the beginning of this episode was a joke that had never actually happened. But there was an author who demeaned and belittled anybody who gave her book a review that wasn't 5 fucking stars. And I can tell you what happened. She got review bombed. And I don't know if you guys know what that is, but that is when a lot of people review a book negatively, whether or not they've read it, to bomb the reviews. And in this case, many of them talked about how this author was treating people who were reviewing. And I mean, when I say she was mocking people who didn't give her 5-star reviews, I'm talking about 4-star reviews. These are great things to get. And they were ridiculing these people for being idiots and for being too stupid to understand what her book was about. I'm like, those are good reviews. You don't do this. You really don't fucking do this. So when I say, when in doubt, don't respond, I really do mean it, because the repercussions of being an asshole to people who are kind enough, and it is a kindness whether or not it's a good review or a bad review, that kind enough to read and take the time to pass on their thoughts about this book that they read. Even if they didn't like it, they took the time to say, hey, these are the things that didn't work for me, and this is why I'm giving it this star rating. And I've seen it before where somebody did take the time and say, hey, this could have been a good book, but the editing just ruined it for me. And because of that, I'm giving it 1 star. Now, that wasn't one of my books, but I do know the author. And I do know that since that book came out, they've had it re-edited, and it's a way better book. In fact, they even had a reviewer who had both copies and hadn't reviewed the book yet. So that reviewer read both copies and said the difference editing can make is astounding. And believe it or not, we actually have a whole season dedicated to editing coming up in the future. I've been working on that one, decided it was a big enough topic that it really deserved its own season. But that's neither here nor there. When it comes to reviews, how can we respond if we think somebody tagged us in a review and we didn't like the review and we thought that they don't understand this book, or they read the characters wrong, or they said something that just made no sense? Well, once again, don't. Who cares if they tagged you in it? Ignore the tag. And as a side note, reviewers, if you're going to tag an author in a review you've left, make sure they're okay with being tagged in it, because not every author wants to read the reviews. Not every author wants to know when they have a review. But for those of us who do read them, maybe just send a quick little DM if you're comfortable with that and ask, hey, are you okay with being tagged in reviews? It doesn't even have to be a DM. You can just ask them that publicly. And hey, that makes that information public knowledge for other people who come along to review. But that's not what we're talking about. I probably should have mentioned that in my last episode, but as per my usual, of course, late night recording, not much time to do it, and absolutely freaking exhausted when I go to do it, as is tonight, as I mentioned. So, dealing with reviews. If you get tagged, ignore the tag if you don't want to read it. Seriously, just put it on mute. You can do that. You can ignore entire threads if you're tagged on something like Twitter. You can just not respond. It's so fucking easy. And I'm going to tell you, some reviews I've read, what I've done when I've been really angry about what they've said, and I thought, what the fuck? Like, do they not get this? Like, how stupid is this person? How could they say this? But it is their opinion, and they're entitled to say what they said. But I have trusted friends, and sometimes when I get feedback that makes me so angry, I turn to those trusted friends and I rant it off. It never goes farther than that private conversation, because these are people that I trust implicitly to know that they're not going to go around and tell people, well, she went on this rant and said this and this and that about a reviewer because she was mad about the review they left. They know, because they're authors too, that sometimes you just have to get it off your chest. So if you can find somebody you can trust, someone who can just listen to you and understand where you're coming from and why you're angry, if ranting helps you bring your energy down, do it. Rant away to a trusted person or two and no one else. And when it comes to having to get it out of your system and wanting to rant, if you don't have those trusted people, or even if you do, I would also like to say that maybe not doing things where you have vague book or vague tweet and about the situation, because you never know who's going to read it or who's going to go, I know who you're talking about. Or in some cases, there are people who like to see themselves as the victim of just about anything, and your vague tweet or vague book is gonna, make them mad and possibly cause issues. In the end, keep it professional. It's all you can do, and as much as bad reviews can hurt, as much as they can feel like somebody's torn your heart out, thrown it in a blender, dumped it on the floor, and then did the maraca over it. Moringa? Maracas are a tool. You know what? They did the cha-cha over it. Okay, guys? So, if they did that, if that's how it feels, it's valid. And don't let anybody tell you it's not valid. But what we need to do as authors is hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard. We are professionals. And we have to act like it, no matter how much we want to scream and rant and rave. And professionalism is something I'm going to come back to a lot in this podcast over the years. It is something that can never be expounded on enough. We are professionals. We need to act like it. And sometimes that means taking the blow and quietly getting back up again to get on with our days. This has been another episode of Not Safe for Words. I hope you found some useful advice here today. If so, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can join me next time for more publishing and writing insights. Thanks for listening.